Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, a great day to talk about some poetry that has interested me lately. And I've been wanting to explore more Asian poets or Asian American poets, just because I feel like I kind of gloss over that when exploring poetry. I have a number of African, European, South American, and just American poets, but not enough from the eastern half of the world. So I'm hoping to address that in the coming months, focus more on that. Today's poem is all about independence, of all things. I am referring to May 1954 by Edwin Thumboo. For those who don't know, Edwin Thumboo is a Singaporean writer who is still alive. I think he was born in the 1930s. And he's still alive according to my research. He is most known for writing poetry, but he's written a few other things, some nonfiction here and there as well. And he's regarded as the unofficial poet laureate of Singapore because of how well he writes and how he speaks to the national conscience of Singapore. He also incorporates elements of English literature into his writing. The one thing that I'm talking about today comes from a collection of poetry called Ulysses on the Merlion, I believe it's called, and the Merlion being the symbol of Singapore, combining the Irish writings with Singapore East Asian writings, which I think is fascinating. And he's probably one of the more famous writers from Singapore, from East Asia in general, which excites me, and it really his poetry really stood out to me because he manages to focus on the abstract, but also focus on the identity, his Singaporean identity, which is something you don't often see in literature, as Singapore, with many other countries, often gets pushed to the side in favor of other Asian countries like Japan or China, as those are bigger and more in the spotlight. And so without further ado, let's talk about May 1954. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. May 1954. We do but merely ask, no more, no less, this much, that you, white man, boasting of many parts, some talk of Alexander, some of Hercules. Some broken not long ago by little yellow soldiers out of the rising sun, we ask you, see, the bitter curving tide of history. See well enough, relinquish, restore this place, this sun, to us and the waiting generations. Deep heart, white man. Your minions ride among our young in Penang Road, their officers unbritannic, full of service, look angry and short of breath. You hoard on milk and honey, tried our spirit, spent our muscle, extracted from our earth, gave yourselves superior ways at our expense, in our midst. Depart, you knew when to come, surely know when to go. Do not ignore, dismiss, pretending we are foolish, harbor contempt in eloquence. We know your language. My father felt his master's voice, obeyed but hid his grievous wounded self. I have learnt. There is an Asian tide that sinks such power into my dreaming side. My father's anger turns my cause. Depart, Tom, Dick, and Harry, gently, with ceremony. We may still be friends, even love you, from a distance. And so that was May 1954. In terms of analysis, there's a little bit to unpack with this poem. I think what's most important is considering what this is about. And I think it's easy to see that he's asking for his independence from colonization, from what appears to be Britain, as Britain had a hold on Singapore until the mid-1900s. And it's interesting that it's titled 1954 because that was around the time that many revolutions were happening for countries that were previously ruled by Britain, France, the Dutch, Germany, Netherlands, a wide variety of colonizers and people asking to be freed from colonization. In many ways, these people helped out with the war cause during World War I and World War II. Now they're like, we helped you with this. Why can't you see us as our own nation anymore? And that's where a lot of the anger comes from in this poem, noting that these people want to be free, but because of one reason or another, Britain doesn't know when to go. He specifically says, "Depart, you knew when to come, surely know when to go." I think getting at how in the 1600s, during the age of discovery, quote unquote, a lot of these cultures invited Britain and France to stay and talk with their emperor, and they just never left. And now it's like, you surely know when to go. Surely know that when we ask you to leave finally, and don't stay here any longer. Don't try to use your language, your eloquence, to try to persuade us that we're better off with you, because it's clear that we're not. Thumboo notes, "Your minions riot among our young in Penang Road. Their officers, unbritannic, full of service, look angry and short of breath." I like the use of the word unbritannic, getting at the how Britain proclaims to be noble and Britannic and regal, but here Thumboo's saying, no, you're not. You're absolutely not being that by staying any longer and rioting and causing problems with our youth. I also like how the poem has such short verses, is full of commas, as if getting at the anger, pinpointing and rapidly. I think it's meant to be spoken rapidly to get at the anger that Thumboo and many others were feeling. He says, "We do but merely ask, comma, no more, comma, no less, comma, this much, colon, that you white man, comma, boasting of many parts, comma, some talk of Alexander, comma." And I think getting at the commas, it's rapid, we want to be free. Why don't you understand this? I don't really see that a lot with poems, but when it does show up, I feel like you can use commas to your advantage in that way. And then the last part of the poem completely changes the overall tone of it. In the poem, Thumboo says, "Depart, Tom, Dick, and Harry, gently, with ceremony. We may still be friends, even love you from a distance." And I think it's meant to be said with love, but it kind of offers a threat to the poem, because we may love you if you leave, but what happens if they don't leave? Surely this is going to lead to violence and clashes and all out revolution unless Britain goes along with this and just chooses to leave. So it's hey, we're friends now, and we could be friends from a distance, but who is to say what'll happen if you stay? And I think that's what makes this poem go hard, in my opinion, is that it espouses all the virtues of being of freedom and independence and wanting to be have that boot come off your throat from the colonizer, from the oppressor, and being nice about it, but also kind of not being so nice about it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on May 1954 by Edwin Thumboo, a pretty solid poem that I definitely recommend you go check out and read, as well as some of the other poems by Edwin Thumboo. He has an interesting way of writing that you might not have heard. You might not have heard a voice like his before, especially given how it meshes English and Singaporean thoughts and writings together, which is just different for me, a different type of encounter. If you read this before, you simply want to comment on something I said here, do so below. Let's have a discussion about May 1954. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem and this author if they don't already know, as well as Poetry Thursday if they want to start reading poetry or poems too. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and independent travels. Farewell.